Buried deep beneath a windswept Siberian cave, a fragment of a finger was found. Just a shard, brittle, brown, unremarkable. But what scientists pulled from that tiny piece of bone shattered everything we thought we knew about human evolution. This wasn't Neanderthal. This was Homo sapiens. It was something else. Not fully human, not fully alien, something in between, something that shouldn't have existed. And yet it did. And once researchers looked deeper, what they found was worse than confusing. It was terrifying. Because this species didn't just live alongside us. They might have shaped us. It started with a fingertip. A broken piece of bone, no larger than a bottle cap, pulled from the cold, silent earth of a cave in Siberia called Denisovan. The excavation was routine. Archaeologists weren't expecting much, just another layer of ancient human activity in a cave that had already delivered Neanderthal remains. But this fragment, it was different. At first, it looked unremarkable. The texture, the size, maybe from a young Neanderthal girl, the team thought. So they labeled it, bagged it, and moved on. Just another artifact from the deep past. But years later, when technology caught up, scientists ran a DNA analysis on the fragment. That's when things got strange. The genome they extracted didn't match Homo sapiens. It didn't even fully match Neanderthals. What they had in front of them was something new. Not fully human, not quite Neanderthal. A ghost branch on the family tree, one that no one expected, and no textbook had room for. It was as if evolution had been hiding a secret in the shadows. And the worst part, this unknown human wasn't just an evolutionary mistake. It was widespread. Because as researchers tested more modern human DNA, from Tibet, from Southeast Asia, even from indigenous Australians, something chilling emerged. Traces of this species still live inside us. That little girl's finger, dug from a dark cave in the Altai Mountains, belonged to a people who didn't just exist. They thrived quietly, powerfully, and right alongside us. It should have been the biggest anthropological discovery in decades. Instead, it sent shivers down the spine of every scientist who looked too closely. Because if they were here, where did they go? And if they disappeared, what did they leave behind? The sample was sent to Leipzig, Germany, to the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology. These are the people who decode ancient bloodlines like detectives working on million-year-old cold cases. They ran the genome sequence once, then again, then again. It didn't make sense. This wasn't a degraded Neanderthal. It wasn't a mutation of Homo sapiens. It was a whole new species, genetically distinct, yet so similar that it could interbreed with both humans and Neanderthals. The implications hit hard. This wasn't some side branch. This wasn't a dead end. This was a ghost lineage, a lost people who had quietly slipped beneath the radar of history and were somehow still living on inside our own DNA. They called them Denisovans. And here's the part that made scientists uneasy, not just excited, but deeply unsettled. Because if one single finger bone could upend the entire story of human evolution, how much more had we missed? The Denisovans weren't a blip. Their DNA makes up as much as 5% of some modern populations in Oceania and Asia, which means they were everywhere, thriving, breeding, building, living. But somehow not leaving behind the clear tools, art, or graph that Homo sapiens did. It was as if they moved through the prehistoric world like shadows, powerful, silent, and possibly more advanced in ways we still don't understand. Even their genome had strange quirks, mysterious gene variants linked to high-altitude survival, possibly intelligence, and even immunity to unknown ancient diseases. We don't fully know what those genes do. And that's what scares people. Because those genes aren't extinct. They're in us. Living, breathing, active. What happens when one of them gets triggered again? And what exactly were these Denisovans capable of before they disappeared? The Denisovans didn't just vanish into mystery, they never fully appeared. Most ancient species leave evidence of their existence: stone tools, burial sites, cave paintings. But for the Denisovans, practically nothing, just that finger, a few teeth, a broken jawbone found in a Tibetan cave 1,600 miles from Denisova. That's it. No carved weapons, no settlements, no skeletons with storybook answers. And yet, their genetic fingerprint is everywhere, scattered through modern humans like whispers from a forgotten world. This raised a disturbing possibility. What if they weren't more primitive than us? What if they were better? Their DNA contains adaptations that modern humans don't naturally have. One of them helps with oxygen intake at extreme altitudes, a mutation so efficient that even elite athletes can't replicate it with training. And yet, many Tibetans are born with it, passed down from Denisovan ancestors. Think about that. A species we've barely seen left behind upgrades in the human genome, like hidden cheat codes passed forward by nature itself. So now we're left with chilling questions. How did they spread so far, and yet leave so little behind? Were they smarter, quieter, or just better adapted? Did Homo sapiens compete with them, or quietly absorb them? Because that cave, Denisova, didn't just hold the finger of a girl. It also held Neanderthal bones and signs of modern humans passing through. All three species sharing the same cold, dark cave. Maybe not at the same time, but close enough to raise the hair on your neck. Was it peaceful? Was it violent? Or was it something far more unsettling? A kind of silent genetic merging, where lines blurred and identities dissolved. Whatever happened in that cave, it left behind something far more powerful than bones. It left behind a mystery coded into us all. For decades, scientists believed they had a fairly clear map of human ancestry. There was Homo habilis, then Homo erectus, followed by a slow, branching evolution leading to us, Homo sapiens. Toss in the Neanderthals, maybe a few regional variants, and call it a day. Then the Denisovans showed up like a glitch in the system, an entire ghost lineage no one saw coming. Why ghost? Because they had no face, no skull, no clear image, just bones and genes. They weren't extinct so much as they were forgotten, lost in the shadows of prehistory, hiding in the spaces between our assumptions. And their DNA wasn't just different, it was uncomfortably different. When researchers compared Denisovan genes to modern human genomes across the globe, they found traces of them still lingering, quietly, stubbornly, in millions of us. Populations from Southeast Asia, Melanesia, Australia, and parts of China had inherited up to 5% of their DNA from Denisovans. It's not a fossil. It's you. And that discovery raised bigger, scarier questions. Because the only way for that much DNA to pass through. Interbreeding. Denisovans didn't just bump into modern humans. They lived with us, had children with us, merged with us, and disappeared without a sound. Scientists don't like ghosts. They like bones, timelines, and carbon dates. They like knowing where things fit. But the Denisovans refuse to fit. They're everywhere and nowhere. Their genes appear in populations thousands of miles apart. A tribe in Papua New Guinea might carry a Denisovan variant linked to immune strength. A Tibetan family might inherit high-altitude lung capacity thanks to a mutation that doesn't exist in any known Homo sapien lineage. But how did these traits spread so far, so fast, across islands and continents, when Denisovans barely left behind tools, settlements, or even art? The answer is unnerving. Denisovans were more widespread than we ever imagined, not just cave dwellers, but perhaps expert travelers. There's evidence they adapted to wildly different environments: cold Siberian forests, tropical Southeast Asia, and sky-high Himalayan plateaus. They might have been the most adaptable ancient humans of all. And what's more haunting, they may have been among us longer than Neanderthals. They may have outnumbered us in certain regions. Some geneticists now believe that Homo sapiens entered regions like East Asia and Oceania only to find Denisovans already there, waiting, watching, surviving. And yet, over time, they vanished. But not completely. They dissolved into us, not by war necessarily, but through generations of contact, mating, shared children, and blurred identity. We didn't just wipe them out. We absorbed them. Today, scientists refer to this as admixture, a polite term for what is, in reality, a messy, mysterious collision between species, one that shaped who we are in ways we're still unraveling. And the deeper we look, the more it seems Denisovans weren't a strange offshoot of humanity. They were human, just not our kind of human. Close enough to merge, different enough to scare us. Gone before we could understand them. Or maybe, just maybe, they never really left. What if that wasn't rare? What if this human tree isn't a tree at all, but a tangled web of encounters, mergers, and genetic collisions? Even more disturbing. In one cave layer, scientists found the bones of a child who had a Neanderthal mother and a Denisovan father. A literal hybrid, born from two ancient species once thought to have never met. So how many others were there? And if interbreeding was common, why did we survive and they did? Or did we? In 2019, researchers found something that changed everything again. High in the Tibetan plateau, inside a windswept cave called Basia Karst, they discovered a jawbone, large, heavy, weathered by time. No one knew what to make of it at first. It didn't look like Neanderthal, and it sure wasn't modern human. Then they tested the proteins in its teeth. It matched Denisovan DNA. Let that sink in. A Denisovan jawbone, found 10,000 feet above sea level, in a cave still used by monks today. Which means long before Homo sapiens ever reached those heights, Denisovans were already thriving there. Not surviving, thriving. Breathing in thin air, crafting tools, raising families, and possibly leaving behind knowledge we never recognized as theirs. And that's when the fear crept in for many researchers. Because Denisovans weren't just another primitive species, stumbling through the Ice Age. They were resilient. They were everywhere. And we know almost nothing about them. Where are their settlements? Where are their artifacts? Where is their story? It's as if they moved through history without leaving a trail, a presence without a voice. That eerie silence is what scientists now call the Denisovan Gap, a timeline where we know they existed, but can't explain how. No myths, no oral traditions, no cave paintings. And yet here they are, in our blood, in our lungs, in our immune systems, inside us. The very fact that they're so genetically woven into modern humans, yet culturally invisible, makes the Denisovans one of the most disturbing mysteries in all of human evolution. Because if an entire species, intelligent, widespread, successful, can simply vanish without a trace, what else have we missed? What other ghosts are buried in our DNA, waiting for us to ask the wrong question? Or worse, the right one. Forget the image of slow, lumbering cave people grunting in animal skins. Denisovans may have been anything but primitive. When scientists reconstructed their genome, they found enhanced traits, things that don't just hint at survival, but at optimization, strength, endurance, altitude tolerance, immunity to certain pathogens, even potential markers tied to cognitive development. Let's be clear, we're not saying they were superhuman, but we are saying they were built differently. Their bones, like the jaw found in Tibet, are massive, not in a brute strength way, but in a way that suggests biological refinement for extreme environments. Their teeth are larger than ours, not deformed, just engineered for something we no longer do. And then there's the altitude gene. Modern Tibetans and Sherpas carry a Denisovan mutation that helps the body absorb oxygen in high altitudes. It's one of the most efficient adaptations to thin air ever recorded. Scientists say it likely came from interbreeding with Denisovans. But that raises a weird, chilling thought. Denisovans didn't just survive in deadly places. They may have dominated them. They lived where others died. They moved across mountains, jungles, and harsh plateaus, and did it long before Homo sapiens ever figured it out. And they didn't do it loudly. Unlike us, Denisovans left no cave art, no flashy carvings, no burial sites packed with ornaments or storytelling relics. But that doesn't mean they lacked intelligence. It might mean something far more alien. They thought differently. Maybe they didn't externalize ideas the way we do. Maybe their intelligence was more internal, sensory, instinctive, biologically embedded. Or maybe they communicated in ways we haven't even considered. If that sounds unsettling, good. Because the further science digs into Denisovan genetics, the more it suggests that these weren't just close relatives. They were something else entirely. The Denisovans weren't just tough, they were technically capable. Inside that same Siberian cave, archaeologists found something that shouldn't have been there: a polished green stone bracelet. It was old, very old, possibly over 40,000 years old, and it wasn't crude or chipped together like early tools. It had been drilled with remarkable precision, using rotary techniques that wouldn't be seen again until much later in human history. Wait, what? A bracelet made of chlorite, sourced from over 150 miles away, crafted with tools we didn't think existed yet, left behind by a species we barely understand. If it wasn't Denisovan, then who? That piece of jewelry, simple, silent, buried in a layer predating Homo sapiens in the region, raises a difficult question. Were they ahead of us? Not just biologically, but technologically. We always assumed humans were the innovators, the storytellers, the artists, the thinkers, but that assumption rests on evidence, the kind Denisovans seem to have erased, hidden, or never left behind. Could they have had technologies made from organic material, wood, leather, bone, that vanished with time? Did they bury their dead in a way we haven't found yet? Did they build, but in places we haven't looked? Or did they simply live in a way we're not wired to understand? Anthropologists now admit we've underestimated how diverse human intelligence may have been. Not all minds think alike. And what if Denisovans didn't need paintings or flutes to pass down knowledge? What if they encoded it through ritual, genetics, or environmental memory? Think about it. You're looking for signs of human genius, but only in ways you recognize. What if the real evidence is right in front of us, in our lungs, in our bones, in the strange capabilities we can't fully explain, that never came from Homo sapiens at all? Let's talk about disappearance. Not extinction by fire or ice, not slaughter on a battlefield, but a quiet, creeping fade until there's nothing left to study but fragments. That's the Denisovan story. There are no Denisovan cities to uncover, no monuments to dig up, no sprawling burial sites or fossil-rich valleys, just a few bones and DNA hidden inside millions of us. Which begs the question, if they were so widespread, so adapted, maybe even superior in some ways, where did they go? One theory, we absorbed them, slowly, through generations of interbreeding and cultural blending. Their distinctiveness dissolved not through violence, but through intimacy, a slow erasure by proximity. Another theory, climate. Denisovans may have thrived during colder ice age phases, but failed to adapt to the warmer, wetter shifts that followed. But if they were so biologically versatile, surviving high altitudes, brutal cold, and varied ecosystems, that doesn't fully add up. Which leaves us with a third, darker theory. We erased them. Maybe not out of hate, but out of fear. Because imagine meeting another species, just like you but not quite. Stronger, quieter, better suited for survival. They don't worship the way you do. They don't talk like you. Their children look different. Would you share the world with them? Or would you do what humans have always done when faced with the unfamiliar? History says we dominate. We colonize. We overwrite. It's possible Denisovans didn't die out. They were simply outcompeted, swallowed by the wave of Homo sapiens expansion, reduced to traces in our genome. But that doesn't mean they're gone. Because when you breathe at high altitudes, when you resist a virus that others can't, when you push beyond what your biology should allow, that's not just you. That might be them speaking through the architecture of your cells, a whisper from the forgotten mind, a reminder that not all ancestors wore our face, and not all humans were fully human.